Episode 11 of Twin Peaks was all about struggling, with an emphasis on struggling to survive. The interesting thing about this episode is they flipped the theme on us by the end of it. So let's talk about the struggle in episode 11, along with what the hell was that car horn all about.
Hey, I'm G, and this is the G-Spot.
Struggling was scattered all over the episode. Norma, Mullins, and the Mitchum brothers were struggling with finances. Becky was struggling with her marriage. And then we see Bobby and Shelley struggling to deal with Becky. On top of this, Bobby and Shelley were struggling with their romantic lives. Shelley was very happy and excited when she first saw Red, but when she comes back into the restaurant and everybody's looking at her, she gets completely deflated because she knows she's making a bad decision with Red. It's another bad boy who's going to lead to nothing but trouble. Hence, Shelley is still struggling romantically. And we saw that Bobby was struggling with seeing Shelley with another man. Hawk, Frank, and all the people in Buckhorn are struggling to solve a mystery. We saw Maggie struggling to keep up with an influx of 911 calls. And Margaret was worried about Hawk and his struggle with encountering the fire. We also see that Diane and Steven are both struggling to hide their actions. A quick note about Diane. It does seem that Diane signals the woodsman to attack Bill. It looks like she mouths now right before he does it. On top of this, someone pointed out in the comments that when Diane does look at the woodsman, she sees a mirror image of him. The shipping container and the house are flipped when Diane looks at the woodsman. I'm not really sure what that's about. But the main struggle in the episode is for survival. We get it right from the start when we see Miriam struggling to stay alive and to get help. Then we go to Becky, who we see grabs a gun, an ultimate threat to survival. After that, we see Shelley hanging on for dear life to the hood of the car. And then Shelley runs into Carl, which brings up another interesting point of note. Carl points out to Shelley when she asks him to drive faster that he wants to survive the trip into town and therefore not speed up. Carl is turning out to be a really rational and kind guy. We also see him listening to Shelley on the phone, and when he realizes Shelley needs to contact Bobby, he just grabs the CB and contacts Bobby for her. Nice and plain and simple. Let's cut all the drama out of it. And we've seen Carl act very kind and mature in the episode when Richard runs over the young boy. After this awful, tragic event happens, everybody around acts kind of in a normal fashion. It was such a horrifying event that they're stunned. They can't even move. But Carl approaches the mother. He's kind of wise, Carl. He knows there's nothing that he could say to this woman at this point in time. There's just no words for this situation. But what he does do is he puts his hand on her shoulder, which is really all you can do in a situation like that, just to let somebody know that they're not alone, to give somebody a human connection. Carl has really impressed me in season 3. He's turning out to be one of my favorite characters. In Buckhorn, we see Bill Hastings lose his struggle for survival, and we see Gordon struggle to survive and encounter with the fifth dimension. The people that are struggling the most are all the townspeople in Twin Peaks. Now, this starts out when we see Becky show up to find Steven with the gun. And you see the neighbor pleading with Becky to please just leave. She's struggling to get Becky and her gun out of her vicinity. And then Becky fires some stray bullets. And these aren't the only stray bullets that the town of Twin Peaks has to deal with. There are more stray bullets that come from the young boy. The townspeople seem to survive this incident of stray bullets flying through the air, but it does lead to the crazy woman honking the horn, struggling to get home to eat, a basic need for survival. It also puts the young girl in the car, who obviously needs some kind of attention, struggling to survive. But this is only the beginning of the struggle for the people in Twin Peaks. And this is made very clear to them by that constant honking horn. That honking horn is an alarm to the people in Twin Peaks that there is trouble and they need to react. The town is in danger, and that horn was an alarm alerting them to this. Now, in Las Vegas, we start out the same way with this struggling. Mullins talks about his financial problems with Dougie being that he can't afford to pay the Mitchum brothers the $30 million that they are owed. He then talks about Dougie uncovering a crime ring that has been going through the office, and that is most likely the reason for the past 2 threats on Dougie's life. After the meeting, they head down, Dougie grabs his pie, and they head out to the limo. Now, a point of note in this scene is Mullins knocks Dougie on the cheek, says knock him dead, and Dougie reacts to this. He doesn't really mimic what Mullins did. Instead, Dougie holds his face like this. And we've seen a hand on a face like this before in a really creepy scene with Dale. It's when he killed Jack, and he just rubs his cheeks like this to kill him. It's so creepy that someone could kill another person in this manner. I'm not really sure how Dougie is aware of this, but he seems to be. So once Dougie gets in the limo, this is when we see the theme of struggling flipped. To begin with, we get a upbeat song, Viva Las Vegas, and a nice, exciting drive through the town of Las Vegas. The scene, the shots that we see going through Las Vegas remind us of a exciting journey, right? Into it. It's almost like a movie of people moving to Vegas for a new life. Like it's exciting. We then get to the Mitchum brothers and see that Benny is still struggling to figure out what his dream means. Now, a quick point of note with Benny. One, he's putting time into translating a dream, which I wouldn't imagine a character like him doing. We see that Rodney doesn't want anything to do with it. He gets a little frustrated that Benny keeps bringing the dream up. This is nonsense to Rodney. And you would think that Benny would feel the same way, that trying to translate a dream is nonsense. But he doesn't. The other point to note about Benny is this is not the first time they have made sure that we see this ring on his finger. It is on his right hand and not his left. I'm not exactly sure if it means anything, but they've pointed it out to us quite a few times. Once Dougie shows up, it does seem like there's a threat to survival, but it's not really there, right? When they have the gun on Dougie, I don't think at any point we feel worried for Dougie. This scene plays out very playfully. It's kind of funny because, they think a cherry pie is in that box. It's just, the whole thing's extremely amusing and absurd. And even though a gun is pulled on Dougie, there's no real threat to Dougie. There's no darkness in this scene. There was more darkness when we just saw Becky grab her gun. That was more of a scene. But again, this scene with the gun on Dougie is more like a cherry pie in the box. And it's right after this that the Mitchum brothers find their $30 million check, and we really switch from struggling to thriving. We end in the fancy restaurant. Drinks are flowing. Everybody's happy, celebrating, toasting. And not only is there pie for Dougie, but there's plenty of pie. He has 2 pieces. They are truly thriving at this point. On top of this, we see the woman who Dougie helped in the casino. And she stops to tell Dougie how she has been thriving ever since that night in the casino and gives him a big thanks for that. It is really interesting that they flipped the theme by the end. To me, it all points to Cooper coming out of Dougie, because we know that it's not a complete switch for the show. The town of Twin Peaks is not going to start thriving the next time we see them. They have only begun their struggle. But we did get another signal that Cooper is coming out of Dougie. It's at the very end of the conversation, and when the Mitchum brothers call Dougie a friend, his response is friend O. That's not a mimic, and that is from Cooper's past. We pointed out from the last episode that the sex between Janie E and Dougie is going to help Cooper come out. And then in episode 11, we see a sign that Cooper is starting to come out of Dougie. A question I had in this episode was what those notes were that grabbed Dougie's attention in the restaurant. They were 3 or 4 single notes. It's right before the woman from the casino comes in, and they really grabbed Dougie's attention. but I can't place these notes anywhere in from the past in Twin Peaks, from any past seasons or this season. I don't know where these notes are from or why they grabbed Dougie's attention in that way. If anybody does know, I'd love for you to leave that in the comments. Thanks so much to all my new subscribers. I'm very excited to have you along on this journey through the amazing show of Twin Peaks. If you haven't already subscribed and you do want to be notified every time I upload a video, go ahead, click the subscribe button, ding the bell, and you will be notified every time I upload a video. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.